Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to build something really cool. We're going to build an AI story generator app, and we'll be using Google's Gemini AI model, and we'll also use image generation APIs. So the main idea is that we will take your simple story idea like a boy who builds a time machine. Then we'll turn it into a beautiful illustrated story in just a few seconds. So by the end of this video, you'll learn how we can use Gemini API to generate creative content and how we can connect the image generation APIs to bring your story into life visually. So without further wasting any more time, let me show you what I've done so far and what you need to build. So I've already created an Expo application, and if you need to create an Expo application, just simply go to docs.expo.dev. Then you will land on this page where you can just simply run this command into your terminal, and it will create a basic template for your Expo router application. So then I've already installed the native wind. We're going to use Tailwind classes to design our application, and native wind is the way to go. So if you go to nativewind.dev, then you will find this installation guide, and you can just follow this guide to install a native wind into your Expo router application. And then you can just simply use classes to design any component or build your design. So after this, I've already added 2 pages into our application. Here, if you open the app folder, you will see index and the story. I've already added the story creation page and then the story reading page. So this is all pretty basic stuff. You will understand how this is working. First, I will show you how we can run this application and see what I've implemented so far. So let's open the terminal and then run this command npm run iOS. This is going to build the application for our iOS app, and there we can see the application is running. So this is the home page of the application. I'll just show you how it's working. We are using background image, the background gradient image, and then I'm just using a simple classes to make this design. We have a title, some heading, and then I have an input at the bottom. So when you write anything, it's going to save that into the seed value. So here we have the seed that stores the title that you are typing here, and we're using loading to show that the story is generating. Pretty basic stuff. And once you click on generate story, this will land on this page. So on the story page, we also have a background image with a 0.5 opacity, and using these classes to build a description for this page, and then a previous and the next buttons, and here is a text for total pages. So this is pretty basic stuff. The main purpose of this video is that how we can use AI to build the content and show it in our application, and that we will do in a second. Now we need to get the Gemini API key. So let's go to the Google's AI Studio. So if you go to this website aistudio.google.com, here you can get the Gemini API key. I've logged in with my Google account, so you'll have to log in, then accept the terms. Once you do that, you will land on this page. Here you can see options as chat with models, monitor usage, and projects. So at the bottom you can see a code snippet that uses Google Gen AI package, and this is what we're going to use. So it's using AI model, and the model name is Gemini 2.5 Flash. So we're going to use the same model actually, and then we're gonna provide the prompt and it will return us the response. So now we need to get the API key, and if you look at the bottom left, you will see get API key option. So just click on this, and so here you can already see an API key is added for us already. And if it's not here, then you can just click on this button, create API key. You can just name it and then select the project, default Gemini project, or you can create one. And then if you hit the create key, it's going to create the API key for you. So here we already have that, so I don't need to create one. Just click on this, and here is our API key. Just copy this and then move to our application, create an .env file, and then add this variable Google Gen AI API key and paste the API key here. Let's save this. So this is done. Now we'll be using this snippet to create to get the response from this AI model. So let's go back, and now we will need to create an API route. So in Expo router application, you can actually create API routes, and let me just show you the documentation. If you go to expo .dev router/web/API routes, you will see this API routes documentation where you can just follow this structure to create an API key. The way we can create an API key is we just have to append plus API, and that will create that file and API route. So if I add hello plus API.ts, then that will create an endpoint, API endpoint with hello. So you just need to make sure that web.output is server. So I've already done this. So if you go to your app.json, then output, this should be server. So make sure this value is server, then you'll be able to use it on web. And here is a pretty simple API to test. So let me just copy this and let's see if that works. So let's go to the app, and here let's create a folder API. Then let's create a file hello plus API.ts and then paste it here. So here we have a pretty simple endpoint that will get us the response as hello world. So let's run it on web. Let's just press W in the terminal, and that is already opened on my second screen. So let me just drag that here. So here you can see API/hello opens this API endpoint, and here we get the response. If I change this, let's say it works. Let's save it. And now if I hit that endpoint, you can see it's updated. So here's how we can use API routes in Expo router application. Now we need to create an API endpoint that will generate the content for our application. And the main idea is that once I add a title here, let's say a boy who builds a time machine, and hit generate story, it's going to create like 8 to 10 pages of a story, and each page will show an image and some description for that page. So that is the main idea. I know it's pretty basic stuff, but the main purpose is to show you how we can use AI to build this stuff, and you can have your own idea, but I'm just here to show you how we can use AI into your idea. So that's what I'm trying to do. So now we need to define a post request that will create the content for our application. So let's just remove this one. Actually, we'll need to change the name of this file as well. I want to access it by the name story. So story plus API.ts like this. And then we're gonna export an async function called post like this. And then we will receive our request as the request type. Okay, so here first we need to define some headers. Let's do that. We will have the content type application/JSON like this. Then we need to add a try catch block. And in case if we get any error, we're going to return a new response. And we need to convert the error message to stringify. So let's just use JSON dot stringify, and then error will be E as the error, and then we need to get the message from this. So that is what we need to send, and then in the response we can add the header and the status. So here after after this bracket we can add another object as the headers, and then the status will be 500 like this. So now we'll be receiving a seed value from the front end that's going to be the prompt text for us. So here's how we can get the seed value. We need to await for request.json function. We will get the request data as JSON, and then the data will contain a seed as a string. So we got the string value. Then we need to add a condition to see if that does not exist. If the seed doesn't exist, then return a response with the error missing the seed. So before we make the API call, we need to get the API key here. So API key equals process.env dot what do we have? The variable name is Google Gemini API key, this one. So once we have the API key, now we're ready to make the API call. But just to make sure we have the API key, let me just add a condition that will check if there is no API key, then it will just send an error message, server misconfiguration, missing an API key, like this. Now we have the seed and the API key, so we're ready to call the Google Gemini model. So if you see the code snippet from the AI Studio, here you can see we need to install a package at google/genai. I've already installed this, so just run this command npm install this package, and this will install for you. So we need to get the Google Gen AI from this package. Let me just do that here. Import Google Gen AI from Google Gen AI, like this. So now we are ready to make the API call. Let's just create a variable AI. Here we need to create a new Google Gen AI request. We need to provide the API key, so we already got that from the process.env. So we have the AI model. So now we need to create a prompt that will create a story for us using the title that we are sending from the front end. And the idea is that I want to create 8 to 10 pages for this story, and each page will have a story text and a prompt that will generate the image for that specific page. So we're going to get an array of the JSON array that will have objects, and each object will have a text and then a prompt that will be used to create the image. Because we're not going to use image generation from Google, that's not free, and I wouldn't tell you anything that's costly. So all of these services that I'm going to use are mostly free, and you can use them in your own projects. So that's why I'm going to use another service that will help us generate images, and the limit for that service is 100,000 images per day. So that is a lot. So I'll be using that service, and I have another video showing how you can create your own service for that. So we'll come to that later, but now we need to create a prompt that will get us a JSON array that have a text. Each object will have a text and a prompt. That prompt will generate a visual image for that specific page. So let me just add a prompt here. Okay, so here is a prompt. You're a creative story engine. Given a seed sentence, produce a short story split into 6 to 10 concise lines. Each line should include a vivid single sentence narrative and an image prompt describing a scene to illustrate that line. Return a strict JSON as an array named lines. Each element must be an object with the keys text. The text is the description for that page, and then the prompt. So no additional commentary, and the seed is here. That is what we are sending from the front end, and return only JSON. This is going to make sure we have an array an array with which will have objects, and each object will have a text and a prompt. That is what we need. We're going to show this text on if I go to this page, we're going to show this text here, and the prompt will be used to create images just like this. So here we have the prompt. You can just copy this. Then we're going to get the response from this AI model. So let's create a variable response await AI dot models dot generate content, and here we need to provide the model and the content. So the model we are going to use is Gemini 2.0 flash 001. That is the model we're going to use. Then we need to provide the contents as the prompt like this. Okay, so once we get the response, then that will be the raw text. So let's create a variable raw text equals response dot text, or a single or an empty string. Now we need to create the story lines. So let's create a variable lines. This will have a type as story line array, and this will be empty array for now. So let me just copy that the type for this story line and paste it here. So here we have the text and the prompt. Then we need to create the lines using this type. So let me just copy and paste the code here, and I'll explain how it's working. So we already got the raw text from the AI model, and here we are going to parse this into JSON. We will check if the lines is an array, then we'll get the lines, or maybe if the whole object is the array, then the parsed value will become the lines. In case if we get any error while parsing this, then we have a backup that will check for the first pair of the brackets, and if that matches, then the first object will be the line. If it doesn't match, then we just need to return a response that failed to parse the story. So that hopefully works, and once we get the lines, we need to return the lines to the front end. Let's create a new response, and here we need to send the response to the front end. We need to send the story as the line, status 200, and the header as application/JSON. So this story API is complete. Let's review what we have done so far. So first we are defining the headers, as the content type will be application/JSON, and then we're getting the seed from front end. Once we get that, we are checking if it doesn't exist, then we need to send an error response. Then we're getting the API key. If that doesn't exist, then we throw another error. And then we got the AI service here from Google Gemini AI library. We are providing the API key, then creating a prompt that will get us the response in a JSON array, where each object will contain a text and the prompt, and that we're going to display on the front end, and the prompt we'll be using to generate the images later. Here we're providing the seed, and we are asking to return only the JSON value. So then we are calling the generate content function to generate the content for using our prompt. Once we get that, we are going to parse this response and get the lines as a JSON array. And once we have that, then we will return a success response with an object containing the story lines. So here's how this is working. Now we need to go back the home screen and then implement this API. So let's go to the index page, and here first we need to use that into the input. We are already doing this. So once I write anything here, let's say a boy who builds time machine, and hit generate story, we need to call this API to build a story and then move to the story reader screen. So let's create a function here on generate. It's going to be an async function, and here we need to check if there is no seed. Then we need to alert the user that please enter a sentence to create a story. So let's use the alert from React Native. This will alert the user and return the execution from here. Then we need to add a try catch block. Here we will get the error, and in case if we have any error, we're going to alert that to the user like this. And first we need to start the loading. So in the try block, first let's set loading to true, and we will need to add a finally block where after the execution of this block we'll just set the loading to false. Like this. Now we need to get the response from this API key that we have just created. So let's use fetch, and here I'm gonna use /API/story, and then we need to provide the method as post, then the headers as the content type application/JSON, and then we need to provide a body of this API call. We're going to stringify the seed, so JSON.stringify, and then the object containing the seed value like this. Once we get the response, we are going to check if response.OK is not true, then we'll throw an error, new error, as failed to generate the story. But if everything goes well, then we're going to get the data as await result.json like this. And once we have that data, we're going to push a new screen with this data, so router.push, and here we need to provide the path's name. And the second page is called the story, so we're going to the story page and then provide the parameters, params as the story. We'll need to convert this to a stringify, so JSON.stringify data.story like this. Because if you remember, when we created this API key, we are sending the story key, so we need to provide data.story like this. So let's save this and see what happens. So now when we click on this button, we actually need to call this function on press. We already have this, so here we just need to add on generate. Let's save this. So now when we hit on generate, it's going to get the seed value and pass it to this API, and in this API we're going to get the story lines. And once we get that, hopefully we will have the data sent to the story screen, and then here we need to check if we get the story lines. But first let's see if we move to that screen or not. So let me just add a boy who builds time machine. Let's click on this. So we got this error, failed to generate the story, which I'm not sure why it's coming. So let's go back and let's just debug how we got this error. So let's just console log the response here. Let's save this and generate story. Okay. So in the console we can see I'm not sure why it's coming. Status is 404. Maybe this API route does not exist. Let's see. Let's go to this API and let's just console log a message here to see if even even if you're reaching this API or not. So console.log hello from the API. Let's save this and let's generate story. Okay, so we're not even reaching at this point. Maybe we just need to reload the application to let the Expo app know that we have this API key, API endpoint. Okay, let's just restart the application. Okay, now let's try this again. A boy who builds a time machine. Okay, so this time we are seeing the generate loading, and I'm not sure why we're getting this error again. Are we still not able to get here? So we added the console. Let's save it. Let's build the story again. Oh, okay, so this time we are getting to this AI endpoint, but I think we are actually getting the error from the AI model. I'm not sure why. And we don't have any clear message that says like what went wrong. Okay, so guys, I'm not sure what the error was because I couldn't figure out. And while I was trying to console log the error in the cache block and tried again to generate the story, and it just started working. I'm not sure why. You can see we have the error response 500 not working, and then I tried again and then status 200. I'm not sure what was the issue, but I'm glad that it worked out, and now we are getting the response and moving to the next screen. So here if I just hit on generate story, it's going to take some time, and then once we have the response, we will be on the next screen where we can read the story. So we can just remove this line, save this and go back. Here we're getting the response, so let me just console remove this and console log the story to see what type of data that we are getting. Data.lines. Let's save this, go back and hit generate again. Okay, so now if we open the console, there you can see we have an array, and each object in the array contains a prompt. We can see the first object have the prompt, and then after the prompt we have the text value, and the text value is some description of the first image. Then the object ends, and then the second object have the prompt, and so on. So I think we have like 8 to 10 pages for this story. I just added a single line, a boy who builds a time machine, and it created a story, and we got the data. So this page is complete. Now we need to work on the second page. So let's click on this again. Let's go to the second page. Okay, so now we have another story. So let's minimize this and go to the story page. Here first we need to get this data. So let's get the story. So then we can use a hook that is called use local search params, like this. So here we got the story. Now we need to parse the story lines. So let's create a variable. Lines will be of type story line, like this. And here let me just add the type for the story line. Each object will have the text and the prompt. So here we're going to use a hook that is called use memo. We need to import it, and this will run every time we get the story from the previous component. And basically we're just trying to convert the story from JSON strings to the array. And once we have those lines, then what we're gonna do is we need to show the first object here. So we'll need to define some values for that. So we need to define the index, set index, use state. By default will show the first page, which can be located at the 0 index. Then we need to add a state for the image URLs, set image URLs. By default this is going to be an empty string, and then we need to have the loading as well, because we need to use another API to load all the images. So let's add loading state. Like this, and then we need to have the current variable to have the current object of the story page. So let's create a variable current that will hold line/index, and we're getting this error because we defined the lines later, so let's put that after this. Okay, so now that we have the current object from the story, this will be the first page. So let's try to add the description from the first page. Let's see how that looks like. So here we need to display the front page description. So let me just add if current dot text exists, then show that. Otherwise let's just say no story available. Let's save that. Okay, so there we can see the first story page description, and that is working. Now we need to work on getting the images and then moving between the pages. So for getting all the images, we're going to use another API. So let me just copy and paste the API URL for image generation here, and I will leave a link of the video in the description that will guide you how you can generate, how you can build this service to generate unlimited images. So for now I'm just going to copy and paste these variables here. So we have the image API URL, and then we have an API token. This is a secret key to use this API. There is another video that will guide you how you can build this service. For now I'm not going to show you in this video because this will make this video very long. So let's save this and go back. So for this we will need to create another API endpoint to get the images. So let's create a new file, image plus api.ts. So here first we will need to create a post function. So let me just paste that here. Here we have the post function. Then we'll be passing the prompt value from this object to this API, and that will generate the images. So we will need to create a try catch block, and inside the try block first we need to get the prompt. So first we need to get the prompt, and then we're checking if the prompt does not exist, then we are sending an error response that we are missing the prompt. Let's save this, and then after we have the prompt we're going to get the API URL and the token, which is the API secret key. Let's do that here. Here we have the URL, image API URL, and the token that we just saved into our env file. And if we don't have any of these, then we'll send an error response, server misconfiguration, like this. Let's save this. If we get any error, then we need to return the error response like this, status 500 and the headers. So after we have the URL and the token, now we need to create a prompt using the prompt that we are sending from the front end as well. So let's create an enhanced version of the prompt. Basically we need a specific aspect ratio for the images that we create. So here we have the enhanced prompt. This will take the prompt that we'll send from the front end, and this will make the image 16:9 aspect ratio and visually well framed like this. And once we have this final prompt, we're going to call this API like this. And here you can see we're using the fetch function. The method is post, header is this. Here we are passing the authorization header as well, using the bearer token, and the token is the API secret key that we saved in the env file. And then we are passing the body as stringified prompt. And once we get the response from this API, we will check. If response is not okay, then we will cache any errors and send the image API error back to the front end saying image API errors with this status and this message. But if we do get the response and we get the image that is generated, then we need to get the array buffer from this result. So once we have the array buffer, we can then convert that array buffer to base 64 image, just like we are doing it here. So once we have a successful response, we need to convert the response to array buffer, because that will be the image, and we need to add this type before we convert that buffer to base 64 string, because this will indicate this is an image and it's of type base 64. This will be the image URL that we can use into the image component to show the image here. So here we have the image URL, and then we are sending the response back as the image URL with the status 200 and the headers. So let's save this. Now let's review what we have done so far. So this API will get the prompt from front end to generate the image. If the prompt does not exist, we will send the error, and then we will check if we have the URL image generation API URL, the token, and if we don't have that, then it will show error. But if we do have that, then we will create an enhanced version of this prompt by specifying the image aspect ratio, and then we will call this API image generation API, and once the response is okay, we're going to convert the response as array buffer and then convert it to the base 64 string, which we can use to show the image. And then finally we will return the success response with the image URL. So let's go back to the story page. Here let's add a use effect hook. It's going to run when we have the story value like this, and inside this I want to add a condition. If there is no lines in the story, then we just return from here. Then we need to create an async function to load all the images. So async function load images. Okay, so here we need to add a try catch block. So I don't want to see the loading on all the pages. I will just fetch all the images at once using promise.all, and then we can just use the current index to show the image from that result. So results using await, and we can use promise.all and provide all the promises here. So here I'm going to map through the lines, and this will be a callback, but we know we're going to make it async callback. Now inside this we're going to call an API, and we need to wrap it inside a try catch block. So let's just do that here. Here we're calling the API /image endpoint. The method is post, content type is application /JSON, and here we have the prompt for each line. And if the result is okay, then we will have data.image URL, and that is what we need to return. So once we return that, we will have an array of all the image URLs in this result, and we need to set that into the image URLs. So after this, we can just set image URLs as the results, and so here we have an error. This should be a string array, so we can just add the type to this. Okay, so the error is gone. Now this will set the images once we get from the endpoint, and in case if we get any error, we'll just set the loading. Okay, I made a mistake here. This should be set loading, and here we need to set the loading to false like this, and we need to call this function as load images like this. So what this will do is, first it will check if we have no lines, then we will return from here, and then we are defining a load images function that will take all the lines and map them as a promise, and once all the promises have the results, then we will get the results and set the image URLs into this state. And we need to start the loading at first because we need to show that we are getting the visuals. So here let's just say set loading to true like this. So hopefully this API works and get us the images. Now we need to add some loading state here to let the user know that we are fetching the visuals. So let's add a condition here. If loading is true, then we need to show this view with the activity indicator. So what this will do is it will align everything into the center and show an activity indicator and a text that preparing visuals. And if the loading is false, that means we got the images, and then we need to show the images here. Right now we're just showing the dummy image. So let me just copy this and paste it here. So here we will need to check if we have the image URL at the current index. Only then we will show the image results. So let's just add a condition here. If image URLs have the value at current index, then we will display this image, but if it's not, then we can just show null like this. And then further we need to get the image URL and show it here instead of this dummy image. So let's just remove that and add a property URI and then image URLs and then the index that we currently have. So let's save this. So as we save this, you can see preparing visuals. Now it's fetching all the images. So let's just wait. So it's taking a bit long. I'm not sure why. Maybe Expo doesn't recognize this API yet, or maybe we just need to reload the application. So I'm just going to shut this down, and I'm going to restart this application. Maybe that way it will find this API, because we already have had this issue with the story API. So let's just rerun this project on iOS. Okay, so the app is running again. Now let's try something like a panda learning how to code. So before I run this, let me just make sure if we're calling the API correctly. We're getting the lines, and then if result is okay, we have the image URL and then set the loading to false. We do have this issue. I'm not sure why I made this mistake. This should be finally, because we need to set the loading false so that we can see this. So the loading starts, we fetch the images, and once all the images are fetched, then finally we set the loading to false. Actually, we can just move this loading into this function like this. We don't even, I don't think we have to do this, because we can just set it to true by default, and this will just start the loading, and after we're done calling this function, then it will set it to false like this. So let's save this, and then let's generate a story, a panda learning how to code. Okay, so the story is generated. Now it's fetching all the images. Okay, so there we can see the image that is generated for the first page of our story. It looks good, So hopefully all the rest of the images are created for all the pages as well. But now we need to implement a feature where we can go back and next pages of the story. So here I'm going to create two functions on previous and on next. So let me just add that code here. Okay, so on previous, this will decrease the current index, but it will make sure that it does not go below the 0, because 0 is the first index. And then on next, it will increase the index, but it will make sure that it does not go beyond the total number of pages for this story. And we can use that on the next and the previous buttons. So let's go to the next button here, and here once we press on this button, this will trigger on next function, and then it will be disabled when the index equals to the lines dot length -1, because that will be the total pages of the story. So we need to disable that when we reach at the end. Then in this text we need to show the current page dash the total pages. So let me just add that here. So this will check if we have the line. Then it will show index +1 because the index starts from 0, but we need to show 1 for 0 index dash the total number of the pages. And then for the previous button we need to add on press and then run on previous, and this will be disabled when the index is 0. So let me just add that here. Let's save this. Okay, so hopefully all the images are generated. Now you can see the previous button is disabled because we are on the first index. So if I click on next, you can see the panda is typing and we have the next page of the story. The index is increasing. Let's go next. So here the panda is stuck on a syntax error. It's a pretty funny story. So we have the next page. We can go previous, next, 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 and I think panda has successfully created a hello world application. And so this is the last page of the story, and the next button is disabled, so everything is working perfectly fine. Let's go back, and now let's try to create a different story. Let's say a boy who builds a time machine, then hit generate. Okay, so the story is generated. Now it's fetching all the images. There we go. So here we have the first page of the story. Then we can go next, next, so this is the end of the story and everything is working perfectly fine. Let's go back, and with this our application is complete, and we just learned how we can use Gemini to build an AI service that create content for us. And we used the image generation API as well, which I will leave the link of that video in the description, so you can learn how you can create that service. We'll be going to use cloudflare workers. It's a serverless function that uses AI model to create images, but the limit for that service is 100,000 images per day, and that is a lot, so you can use that service in your own applications. I just showed you how you can build this pretty basic application that generates AI stories based on this title. So now you have the idea how you can use that in your own projects. And if you like the video, give this a like and follow my channel if you haven't already. Share this with your React Native friends. You can get the source code for this application in the video description. So this is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.